The Introduction to Concrete training aims to familiarize non-tradespeople with the basics of pouring and finishing concrete. We will outline how to safely work with concrete, prepare the area, pour, move, and finish the concrete. We will also discuss necessary tools, working definitions, and process steps for a successful pour. Before starting work, make sure you have all the necessary protective equipment. Concrete dust or wet concrete can be harmful to the skin and lungs. Avoid skin contact. Wear long clothing, gloves, and waterproof boots. Avoid eye contact. Wear your eye protection. Avoid breathing in the dust. Dust masks and respirators are recommended. There are many different tools used while working with concrete, but here are the most essential and common tools. Placer, hand float, screed, bull float, trowel, broom, edger, and groover. The focus of this training will be on flat work, the most general and common type of concrete work. Flat work refers to work being done on a horizontal surface. It includes driveways, sidewalks, and patios. Knowing that concrete and cement are two different products is key to this process. The terms are often used interchangeably, but are not the same thing. Concrete is a mixture of cement, sand, aggregate, and water that can be used in paving or constructing buildings. Cement is made up of Portland cement, which is a powder combination of limestone and clay. Generally, it's used as a binder in concrete and is not used on its own. Aggregate is typically crushed rock about a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch. It is used in the concrete and to form a base under the concrete slab. Before you begin any digging or dirt work, make sure you call 811 or visit call811.com to have utilities located in your dig area. Allow at least 48 hours for the companies to reply to your request. Prep work is a critical part of the concrete pouring process. Once your area has been approved for work, start by marking out the dimensions of your slab. Your pour location needs to be free of debris and sod. The ground needs to be somewhat flat and uniform. Now you are ready to build forms on the base. Now you can begin to build the form and define the shapes of your concrete project, as well as determine the fall or slope of your finished slab. Use 2x4s or 2x6s to form up the area, screwing the corners together. The thickness of your concrete will determine the size of the forms you will use. Once you've determined your corners to be square, drive stakes into the ground and use screws or framing nails to attach them to the forms. This sets the form height and keeps it from shifting. Now, add aggregate to your base and tamp down with a hand tamper or plate compactor. Make sure there are no gaps between the bottom of the form and the base. If there are, add more aggregate and tamp down again. Check the depth of your pour by placing a screed or string line across the top of the forms and measuring to the compacted base. This ensures you have the correct depth of concrete across the entire pour. For non-weight-bearing slabs, the general rule of thumb is to allow 2 to 3 inches for the aggregate base and 4 inches for concrete. Non-weight-bearing concrete includes patios and sidewalks. For weight-bearing slabs, the concrete should be 5 to 6 inches thick. Driveways, parking lots, and garage projects would be considered weight-bearing slabs. Reinforcement with rebar or wire mesh is suggested for all concrete pours. The extra strength adds to the longevity of the structure. It also helps the slab to move as one piece during the freeze and thaw cycles or when the ground settles. Rebar should be evenly spaced in a grid pattern with pieces overlapping to make up for the length of the span. Common industry standard is to have 24 to 36-inch grid squares. The overlapping intersections should be tied with wire to secure the grid together. Excess wire can be cut or flattened against the bars. Center the rebar, leaving the ends 2 to 3 inches from the edges of your forms. You can use rebar chairs to elevate the rebar so it is in the center of the slab. The chairs can be left in the pour. Another option is to lift the rebar as you're pouring and placing concrete. To find the amount of concrete needed, multiply the length, width, and depth of your pour area. Convert this number to yards and add 10% extra for waste. You can find concrete calculator apps online that will help you, especially when working with pours other than flat slabs. Larger pours require using a concrete mixing truck to deliver the product. The mixing company will calculate the pour amount with the dimensions you provide. They can also suggest the correct mixture of concrete you need for your project. For smaller areas, using bagged concrete is an easier solution. Just remember to mix with water according to the instructions. You can mix the concrete with the utility mixer or a shallow tub with a shovel. Right before pouring, spray form release agent on the inside of the forms to ensure easy removal once the concrete cures. Also spray the aggregate base with water, especially in extremely hot temperatures. This helps prevent shrinkage cracking that can occur when the water in the concrete evaporates too quickly while setting. No matter the method of mixing you decide, it's best to work in controlled sections while pouring concrete. It makes it easier to spread and gives you a chance to keep the rebar in place. Also, work from farther to nearer your concrete mixing source. A concrete placer is used to move and spread the concrete. Use it to fill any voids and holes, making sure the concrete height is at or just above the forms. A hand float is a good companion tool to the placer. Use it to move the concrete at the edges of the forms or when working near structures. Once the form has enough material, it's time to screed. Screeding is striking off excess material across the forms to achieve a surface that's flat to the top of the form. The form should be clear of debris and excess concrete prior to screeding. Using a hand float or placer will help to move the extra concrete and fill the voids ahead of the screed. There are a variety of screeds available: hand screeds made of magnesium or aluminum, and mechanical screeds such as vibratory or roller screeds. Floating begins once the concrete slab finds a level with the top of the forms. You begin the floating process using a bull float. A few passes will remove screed marks and flatten out the concrete. Floating is also done to bring the cream or bleed water of the concrete to the surface, while consolidating the aggregate down, making sure the curing process continues at a consistent pace. For smaller or hard-to-reach areas, hand floats and darbies can be used. Hand float, bull float, and derby blades can be made of magnesium, wood, polymer, or aluminum. The type of float a tradesperson chooses is based on their personal preference and job scope. Once concrete has been floated and the surface is beginning to firm up, edging and grooving can begin. Edging is done around the outside of the pour, cutting a line between the form and concrete. It creates a rounded corner on the edges to prevent future chipping and breaking. Eventually, all slabs will have cracks in them. To control where the slab cracks, a groover is used to cut a straight joint in the concrete. Depending on slab thickness, joints should be spaced between 8 and 12 feet apart. Mark the center on the form or snap a line to help run a straight groove. A screed can also be used as a straight edge for running a groove line. The groover will also round the corners of the cut, preventing future chipping. Edgers and groovers come in a variety of sizes, radii, and dimensions in both handheld and walking styles. For better ergonomics, add your preferred handle to a walking tool, especially for larger jobs. The industry standard for groover depth is 1/4 inch groove depth for each 1 inch of concrete depth. Keep this in mind when selecting a groover. The finish that is applied to the concrete slab is determined by how the area will be used. Hand finishing trowels, Fresnos, and power trowels with finishing blades provide a smooth slab surface. For a slight texture to the surface on sidewalks, driveways, or patios, a concrete broom or wire broom can be used. Decorative concrete is also considered a concrete finish. Stamps and rollers are available in a number of styles for walkways and patios. Finishing trowels should be used prior to stamping or rolling to create a uniform surface for the finish. Once the concrete has stiffened or cured for 24 hours, the forms can be removed. You may need a pry bar and hammer for this step. The area around the outside can be backfilled with dirt or rock as needed. Cleanup not only applies to the work area, but also to the tools that were used. Tool longevity depends upon how clean they are kept between jobs. To keep your concrete tools in great shape, rinse the concrete off immediately after use. To keep tools from rusting between jobs, apply a light layer of WD-40 or penetrating oil to the metal. Thanks for listening. I hope you are now more familiar with the basics of pouring and finishing concrete.